Okay, what does a fart machine, cake, cockroaches, killer moss, and the high tide have in common? That's right, Gary Busey. Also, George Romero and Stephen King's Creepshow.
Of horror that will give you the creeps.
This is going to be extremely painful, Mr. Verrill.
The most fun you'll ever have being scared.
There's anthology films, and then there's genre-bending horror classics, so legendary that they sit so far above everything else, they're in a category all their own. That's Creepshow. Creepshow is the horror anthology film. It consists of 5 horrific tales, mixing comedy, scares, and a damn good time. Directed by George Romero and written in collaboration with Stephen King, it has become an all-time horror classic and has one of the best atmospheres of nearly any other horror film I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying that, and I don't say that about every movie I review. Creepshow is genuinely great. Go and seek it out now. Give it a watch. It's the perfect film for this time of the year. And the film has a great cast too. I mean, you have Leslie Nielsen, Ted Danson, Galen Ross, Hal Holbrook, Ed Harris, Vivica Lindfors, John Amplas, who plays Nathan's corpse in Father's Day, by the way, E.G. Marshall, even Stephen King stars in a segment. In the prologue and epilogue, you have Joe Hill, Stephen King's son, who plays Billy, Tom Atkins, Tom Savini plays the garbage man, and also did the makeup effects for the film, which was of course filmed around the Pittsburgh area. The score is done by John Harrison, and it's one of those unforgettable soundtracks that once it gets into your head, you'll be humming it through the whole spooky season. Waxwork Records actually did a LP release of both this and its sequel, and they're both fantastic. Like I said, there's 5 stories, and they consist of Father's Day, The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, Something to Tide You Over, The Crate, and concludes with They're Creeping Up on You. And the wraparound story is equally great if you just took it by itself as a short story. It's all fantastic all around, and it feels very much like an old EC comic. It's very cartoonish, yet still otherworldly and terrifying enough to take place in some sick alternate universe. All the stories seem like they could take place in the same twisted world, and it's very, very creepy. No pun intended. With a film packed with legendary actors, special effects by one of the all-time greats, a soundtrack to die for, and directed by the father of the zombie genre himself, Creepshow is an unforgettable classic that stands the test of time. I'm not going to get into much behind-the-scenes stuff for this one or its sequel, because I urge you to go out and get the Synapse Films Blu-ray, Just Desserts. It's a comprehensive documentary that gets into the nitty-gritty of every aspect of the films and is exhaustive and worth your time. So without further ado, this is my review of George A. Romero's and Stephen King's classic, Creepshow. We open on a house in the suburbs. Jack-o'-lanterns be jack-o'-lanterning.
About that?
Moms be momming and dads be dadding. Quick, strike him down while you can before he grows up and becomes a powerful fiend of nose candy like his father.
Time for me to get your coffin on Sunday.
You won't like him when he's angry. King really didn't like the fact that Atkins was gonna slam his son in the side of the head, so he totally whiffs it if you pay close attention to the scene. And just by horror film logic, he quickly seals his fate. We get an exposition dump.
Things coming out of crates and eating people, dead people coming back to life, people turning into weeds for Christ's sake. That's why God made fathers, babe.
Young Billy makes a deal with the devil, and we get one of the greatest intros to a horror film ever. The animation's really great for the time, and it gives you that comic book vibe that the film's going for in all of its scenes. And it beautifully ties in with our first story, Father's Day. good old Aunt Bedelia is on her way back to visit her father Nathan, who has apparently died years prior, but she still visits him every Father's Day. And as the family continues to tell the story about Aunt Bedelia and how she killed her husband and her father with an ashtray apparently because of his old curmudgeonness.
Oh, a bunch of dirty vultures just waiting to get your hands on my money.
So now every Father's Day she comes back to visit just to spite him.
Why Father's Day?
Because that was the day of the tragedy.
Now apparently Nathan really liked his cake.
Here's my cake. You promised me my cake.
Bedelia, being completely overwhelmed, goes all Bill Murray on his ass with an ashtray. So now that we know she actually did murder him, I don't feel so bad about what happens next.
I want my cake, Bedelia!
Slow down there, Grandpa. You're gonna get the diabetes. Of course, it might actually be a little too late for that. We get one of the best dance scenes since Van Damme and Bloodsport. What's funny is Ed Harris did this movie because it was a favor to Romero because he was in Knight Riders. I love the look of bewilderment on her face. Dinner? No thanks. Alcohol? Yes please. All that dancing got Hank in the mood for a cigarette and a stroll through the cemetery, oddly, which seems to be what brings about his end. Damn disco. Meanwhile, back inside, everyone continues to get drunk and make fools of themselves, apparently. Our host goes to look for Miss Danvers, and what do you know? And arguably, our tale concludes with a happy ending.
Others. And I got my cake.
Our next tale stars the legendary Stephen King himself as Jordy Verrill, a hick with a heart, but dumber than the moss that kills him. This will probably be the quickest part of the review because there's really not a whole lot to say about this segment. The acting's great, the effects are awesome. And what essentially happens is Jordy finds a meteor in the back of his yard, touches it like a dumbass, contracts some kind of disease from it that turns him into a plant, realizes that he's doomed the world, and then takes his own life. Which is a really dark turn to an otherwise hilarious segment.
No, not there.
Also Stephen King. Our next tale is called Something to Tide You Over. This is Harry, played by Ted Danson. He's apparently sleeping with Richard's wife. And Richard, being played by Leslie Nielsen, ironically doesn't think that's very funny at all. Nielsen was notorious for carrying a fart machine around on whatever movie set he went to, and had the cast in hysterics. Now try watching this segment and knowing that. You're welcome. But it kind of speaks to how talented he was because Leslie Nielsen came from serious acting and then was a funny man and could switch personas effortlessly. So Richard convinces Harry to go out to the beach with him, at gunpoint no less, and makes him dig his own hole, cover himself in sand, and tortures him by watching reruns of the Golden Girls. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's actually his wife, buried in the same manner and getting ready to be drowned by the tide.
Becky?
Becky's played here by Galen Ross, which most of you will know from Dawn of the Dead. And it really shows how cold and vengeful that Leslie Nielsen's character is by explaining to Ted Danson's character how the picture quality on the TV is fantastic and not really concerned with both of them drowning. And though their actions might have warranted such a punishment, that's still cold as ice. After taking the time to tell him that if he can hold his breath long enough, he may just survive, he leaves him to his fate and drives away.
Come on, Richard!
I mean, come on, man. That's like just the worst.
You hear me, Richard? I'm gonna get you.
Hold your breath there, Harry.
And just like that, gone. Time to celebrate. But not so fast, Richard. Looks like you may have some company.
Need to get jumpy. All gone.
There's a John Carpenter's The Fog cameo. Bedelia's ashtray makes a return, and we get some good old Romero zombie action. A jump scare? That's just fantastic. The sheer absurdity and terror on his face gets me every time. How fitting. Our next story, The Crate, is the longest one in the film. It runs about 40 minutes, and it's also my favorite. So the school janitor loses his lunch money under a grate in the basement when he notices, and you guessed it, a crate. But not just any crate. Meet Dexter, played by Fritz Wheeler, Henry, played by Hal Holbrook, and Wilma, his wife, played by Adrienne Barbeau.
Oh, just call me Billy. Everyone does.
And boy, is she a winner.
Friggin' pain in the ass. Come on with me. Henry, you stay here till I get back.
I think you can see where this might be going. Henry's just your average Joe, knocked down again and again by life, with a wife who doesn't appreciate him, and he's just not where he wants to be in life. Our janitor friend gives Dexter a call to inform him about the crate he found in the basement.
June 19, 1834. And then something about an Arctic expedition.
Meanwhile, Henry has fantasies about murdering his wife, to great applause, I might add.
Hell of a shot.
But they're just fantasies.
Where would you be without me to take care of you?
So Dexter agrees to help the janitor get his lunch money back. And what luck, there it is. But then they also decide maybe we should get this crate out of here and take it to a safer place. Can't have it just hanging out under the steps. Meanwhile, Henry still fantasizes about killing Wilma.
Oh, Henry.
So what would you do if you found a 150-year-old crate in the basement of a college? Yeah, let's go ahead and open it up. I mean, that sounds like a fantastic idea. Let's not call anybody.
Full of emeralds.
Oh my God!
Dexter finds this poor guy perusing the hallways by himself and tries to convince him that Fluffy just ate someone. Yes, that's right. The creature's name is Fluffy. Isn't that cute? Dexter convinces him that it wasn't him that killed the guy, and convinces him to go check out the crate under the stairs. Because that's smart. I love how Dexter's just like, I'm just gonna stand right here.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Dexter makes his way to Henry's house, explains the whole situation, and miraculously, Henry believes him. So they come up with a plan to get rid of the crate, the monster, and the whole shebang in a quarry. But Henry has some ulterior motives, so he goes ahead and drugs his friend, locks him in the room to get some shut-eye, and ventures off to the college to take care of the crate. So he cleans up his friend's mess, and then puts his devious plan into action.
I've had to leave in a hurry because of a call from Dexter Stanley. He seems to have gotten himself in a great deal of trouble.
I love how he just throws his friend under the bus like that. And old Wilma's just gullible enough to believe it. Henry almost can't contain the joy in his heart thinking about her being eaten by this thing he's been beat down by her for so long.
What are you doing, Henry? What are you doing?
What I should have done a long time ago!
When nothing happens, you can see the look of disappointment and shock on his face, and Wilma's clearly pissed. But even Fluffy gets tired of her constant nagging and decides he's ready for a midnight snack after all. In shock, and maybe even with a little regret, Henry runs out of the room, gathers himself, finds the courage to lock up the crate, and then drive to the quarry to dispose of the evidence. The creature obviously knows what's coming, but is powerless to stop it. And so goodbye, Fluffy. Later that morning in Henry's study, obviously, he lets Dexter in on what he's been up to, and Dexter agrees to keep his secret. The evidence is gone, their hands are clean, and the creature's at the bottom of the quarry, never to be seen or heard from again. Our last story, They're Creeping Up on You, stars E.G. Marshall, and it's a one-man show, really. You hear some voices from time to time over the recorder and the phone, people buzzing his doorbell, but really it's just a one-man show, and E.G. Marshall is fantastic in this role. He plays like the most racist dirtbag boss you could ever imagine, and has no shame in what he believes or what he says, but he's a clean freak in every sense of the word. OCD doesn't even describe this guy's problems. Due to an inevitable takeover, some poor schmuck at his company took his own life, and he seems quite joyful about it, actually.
Now we won't have to offer the old fart a seat on the board of directors.
Bruh.
Uh-oh.
The poor schlub's wife calls Pratt and gives him all kinds of hell.
Mrs. Katzenmeyer, how are you?
I hope they keep hell hot for you.
This upsets Upson so bad he has to put on some music to take his mind off of things.
Genrin told me old Norman went out with a bang.
E.G. Marshall is such a terror in this film. He threatens to fire the exterminator for taking his family to Disney World because he has roaches, and there's no one there to get rid of the problem.
You might go far, White.
I've noticed that in service jobs, people like yourself often do.
Did I mention he was racist? Now the bug problem gets really bad. Upton is literally going insane, I think, here. You're not sure if all this is just in his head or if he has an actual infestation. One thing is for sure, they're creeping up on him very quickly.
I hope you die!
So, Mr. Pratt has a heart attack here and dies. And I cannot show you what happens next, but it is glorious. And well deserved, I might add. So you can just use your imagination here. We finally come back to the wraparound, and who's this? Well, it's Tom Savini collecting the garbage for Mr. Atkins.
Look, an authentic voodoo doll. Somebody already sent for it.
Huh, wonder who. And that very much wraps up our film. Billy gets his revenge, and all is right with the world again. Creepshow is a classic anthology horror film, and doesn't get much better than that. It spawned a sequel, and we're not going to call Creepshow 3 a sequel. It was actually bought by another company who tried to make a sequel, but it's terrible. We're not going to cover that here. We will, however, cover the spiritual sequel, Tales from the Dark Side. And that consists of other Stephen King adaptations, and it's pretty fantastic. If there ever was a Creepshow 3, that would be it. So, thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And stay spooky.
Yeah.